I found the fake divorce papers in my husband's sock drawer, and they had my forged signature on them. Let me back up. I'm Sarah, 38, been married to Mark for 12 years. We live in a quiet suburb outside Phoenix, the kind of place where everyone waves at their neighbors and pretends their lives are perfect. I thought mine was. I was wrong. Mark's mother, Linda, moved in with us 6 months ago after her hip surgery. Just temporarily, she said. The woman who raised the man I love, how hard could it be, right? God, I was naive. Linda's 73, silver-haired, and has this way of smiling that makes you feel like you're being measured for a coffin. She bakes incredible chocolate chip cookies and remembers everyone's birthday. She also has the uncanny ability to make me feel like I'm slowly losing my mind. It started small. My coffee mug would disappear from the dishwasher. My favorite sweater would shrink in the wash, even though I never put it there. The thermostat would reset itself to Arctic temperatures every night. When I mentioned these things to Mark, Linda would tilt her head and say, "Oh honey, you've been working so hard lately. Maybe you just forgot. Maybe I was going crazy." That's what I started thinking. Then came the grocery incident. I'd made a detailed list for Linda's weekly shopping trip, our usual brands carefully written out. She came back with everything wrong. Different pasta sauce, the bread Mark's allergic to, laundry soap that made my skin break out in hives. "I'm so sorry, dear," she said, arranging the groceries with surgical precision. My eyes aren't what they used to be. But I'd seen her threading a needle that morning, squinting at fabric with laser focus. Her eyes worked just fine. The phone calls started next. Late at night, my cell would buzz. Unknown numbers. When I answered, silence. Then a hang-up. It happened 4 times in 1 week. When I told Mark, he frowned and said maybe I should change my number. Or maybe, Linda chimed in from the kitchen, "Someone's trying to reach you about something you don't want Mark to know." The way she said it, like she knew something. Like she was planting seeds. What was she implying? Mark started looking at me differently after that. Not suspicious exactly, but cautious. Like I might be hiding something. The warmth in his eyes cooled by degrees, so gradually I almost didn't notice. Then my sister called. "Sarah, what the hell is wrong with you?" Jessica's voice crackled through the phone. "I just got this bizarre message from your mother-in-law saying you've been having an affair and that Mark needs family support right now." My blood turned to ice water. "She what?" "She called me crying, said you'd been sneaking around, getting mysterious phone calls. She's worried sick about Mark and thought I should know in case you tried to involve me in your," and I quote, "web of lies." I couldn't breathe. The kitchen walls felt like they were closing in. Linda was in the garden, deadheading roses with the concentration of a surgeon. Through the window, I watched her methodical movements, the way she stripped each stem clean. "Jess, I would never." "I know that. But Sarah," she sounded so convincing. "If I didn't know you better." That night, I couldn't sleep. Mark lay beside me, breathing evenly, but even in the darkness, I felt the distance between us like a chasm. Linda's room was directly below ours. Sometimes I heard her moving around at odd hours, the floorboards creaking like secrets. The bank statement arrived on a Tuesday. Mark usually handled our finances, but the envelope was addressed to both of us. Inside, highlighted in yellow, was a charge I'd never seen before. $300 to something called Riverside Counseling Services. I stared at that line until my eyes watered. We'd never been to counseling. I'd never heard of Riverside anything. When Mark got home from work, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the statement spread in front of me like evidence. "What's this?" I pointed to the highlighted charge. His face went pale, then red, then something in between. "Sarah, we need to talk." Linda materialized in the doorway, wearing her favorite floral apron. "Oh my," she said, pressing her hand to her chest. "Is everything all right?" Mom, could you give us some privacy? Mark's voice was tight. She retreated, but I heard her slippers whisper soft on the hardwood, just around the corner. Close enough to listen. I've been seeing someone, Mark said quietly. A therapist. I needed to talk to someone about us. About us. Like we were a problem to be solved. What about us? My voice came out smaller than I intended. He rubbed his temples, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it felt like dismissal. The phone calls, Sarah. The way you've been acting lately. Distant. Secretive. Mom thinks. Your mother thinks what? She's worried about you. About us. She says you've been different since she moved in, and I can see it too. The room spun slightly. This conversation felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life implode. Mark, those phone calls were hang-ups. Random numbers. And I've been acting different because your mother has been. Been what? Taking care of our house? Cooking our meals? She's trying to help, Sarah. She's trying to help. The words echoed in my head like a mantra I couldn't escape. That night, I lay awake listening to Linda's movements below. Soft footsteps, the occasional creak of furniture. At 2 a.m., I heard something that made my skin crawl. Laughter. Low and satisfied, like someone who'd just won a game I didn't know we were playing. I started paying attention differently after that. Really watching. Linda would intercept the mail before I got home from work, sorting through it with the precision of a customs agent. She'd answer my phone when I was in the shower, taking detailed messages she'd forget to pass along. She'd rearrange my things in tiny ways that made me question my own memory. Was my jewelry box always on the left side of the dresser? Had I really left my reading glasses in the bathroom? The doubt was eating me alive. Then came the pregnancy test. I found it in the kitchen trash, buried under coffee grounds and Linda's crossword puzzles. 2 pink lines, clear as day. My heart hammered against my ribs as I lifted it out with a paper towel, staring at those damning lines. I hadn't taken a pregnancy test. I was on birth control, and Mark and I, well, we hadn't been intimate in weeks. Not since Linda moved in and the walls between us started growing thicker. But someone had taken this test in my house. Linda was in the living room, watching her afternoon soap opera with religious devotion. I found her there, remote in hand, eyes glued to the screen where 2 characters were screaming about betrayal and broken promises. Linda, I said carefully, I found something in the trash. She glanced up, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Satisfaction? Fear? It was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Oh. Her voice was honey-sweet innocence. I held up the test. This. She blinked, once, twice. Then her hand flew to her mouth in perfect shock. Oh my goodness, Sarah. You're pregnant? Does Mark know? I didn't take this test. Silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. On the TV, a woman was crying, mascara streaming down her cheeks as she discovered her husband's affair. Well, Linda said slowly, if you didn't take it, then who did? The question hung in the air like smoke. We both knew there were only 3 people in this house. And only one of us was still capable of pregnancy. Maybe, she continued, her voice taking on that concerned tone I'd grown to hate, you took it and forgot? You've been so stressed lately, dear. So scattered. Scattered. Another word to add to the collection she was building around me. Distant. Secretive. Scattered. That evening, Mark found me in our bedroom, staring at the pregnancy test I'd placed squarely in the center of our dresser. Sarah? His voice was careful, like he was approaching a wild animal. Mom told me you found something today. I found this in our trash. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. Are you? He couldn't finish the question. No. The word came out flat and final. I'm not pregnant, Mark. I didn't take this test. But someone in this house did. He sat on the edge of our bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. Sarah, that doesn't make any sense. Doesn't it? I turned to face him finally. Your 73-year-old mother took a pregnancy test and planted it in our trash. Does that make sense? His face changed then, closing off like shutters slamming against a storm. You're being paranoid. Paranoid. Another word for the collection. Am I? Mark, when did you start doubting me? When did you start believing I was capable of lying to you, sneaking around, having secret affairs? You haven't been yourself lately. Since when? Since your mother moved in? Since she started intercepting our mail, answering my phone, rearranging my things? Since she started calling my sister to tell her I'm having an affair? Mark's face went white. She what? For a moment, hope flickered in my chest. Maybe he'd see it. Maybe he'd understand. But Linda appeared in our doorway, as if summoned by the sound of raised voices. Is everything all right? I heard shouting. Mom, Mark said slowly, did you call Sarah's sister? Linda's eyes widened in perfect innocence. I was worried, honey. Sarah's been so different lately. I thought her family should know she might need support. Support for what? I demanded. For whatever you're going through, dear. The phone calls, the secretive behavior. I know the signs of someone having an affair. The words hit me like physical blows. The signs. Like she was an expert. Like she'd studied this. I'm not having an affair, I said through gritted teeth. Of course not, dear. Her smile was gentle, understanding. The smile of someone humoring a child's obvious lie. I looked at Mark, desperate for him to see what I was seeing. But his face was stone, his eyes guarded. That night, I made a decision. I was going to find out what Linda was really up to. I waited until she was asleep, then crept downstairs to her temporary bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear her breathing, deep and even. On the nightstand beside her bed was her purse, a massive leather thing that seemed to contain half her worldly possessions. My hands shook as I rifled through it. Receipts, tissues, hard candies, prescription bottles. And then, at the bottom, my fingers closed around something that made my blood run cold. A key. A small brass key I recognized immediately. It was a spare to our safety deposit box, the one Mark and I kept our important documents in. Birth certificates, insurance papers, our wills. I'd given this key to Mark's brother Dave 3 years ago, when he was handling some legal paperwork for us after Mark's father died. How did Linda have it? The next morning, I called Dave while Linda was at her weekly doctor's appointment. Hey Sarah, what's up? Dave, that spare key to our safety deposit box, the one I gave you a few years back. Do you still have it? A pause. No, I gave it back to you guys months ago. Left it with Linda when I couldn't catch you at home. Why? Months ago. She'd had access to our most private documents for months. Dave, what exactly did you give her? Just the key. And that other stuff she asked for. The copies of your marriage certificate, Mark's social security card. She said you guys needed them for some insurance thing. My legs went weak. What other stuff? Some forms she said you needed me to notarize. Something about beneficiaries? I didn't read them too closely, just did the notary thing. Linda said it was urgent. Forms I'd never seen. Papers I'd never signed. But my marriage certificate, my husband's social security information, all in Linda's possession. I hung up the phone and sat in my car outside the doctor's office, pieces of a horrible puzzle clicking into place. The fake divorce papers in Mark's drawer weren't just a cruel prank. They were groundwork. Legal groundwork for something bigger. That afternoon, I drove to our bank. The safety deposit box required both our signatures to access, but I had to know what Linda had been doing with that key. Mrs. Rodriguez, the bank manager, said when I explained my concern, "I'm afraid I can't discuss access records without your husband present." "Please," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I think someone may have used forged documents to access our box." His expression grew serious. "In that case, we'll need to involve our security department. And probably the police." The police. The words sent a chill through me. This had gone far beyond family drama. This was criminal. When I got home, Linda was in the kitchen, humming while she prepared dinner. The picture of domestic tranquility. "How was your day, dear?" she asked without turning around. "Interesting," I said carefully. "I learned some things." Her humming stopped. "Oh. About keys. And documents. And forged signatures." She turned then, slowly, her face composed but her eyes sharp. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I think you do." We stared at each other across the kitchen island, two women who finally understood the game we'd been playing. "Mark should be home soon," she said quietly. "Maybe we should all sit down and have a conversation." Maybe we should. When Mark walked through the door 20 minutes later, he found us sitting at the kitchen table like negotiators at a peace treaty. The tension was so thick you could slice it with one of Linda's perfectly sharpened knives. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. I placed the safety deposit box key on the table between us. "Your mother has some explaining to do." Linda sighed, suddenly looking every one of her 73 years. "I was trying to protect you, Mark. Both of you." "Protect us from what?" Mark sat down slowly, his eyes fixed on the key. "From making a mistake," Linda said. "From staying in a marriage that's making you both miserable." The words hung in the air like poison gas. "So you decided to forge divorce papers?" I asked quietly. Mark's head snapped toward his mother. "You what?" Linda's composure finally cracked. "You were never going to leave her on your own. You're too loyal, too stubborn." But I could see how unhappy you were. How unhappy you both were. "That wasn't your decision to make," Mark said, his voice dangerously low. "Wasn't it? I'm your mother. I've watched you become a shadow of yourself since she..." Linda pointed at me like I was a piece of evidence. "Since I what?" I demanded. "Since you stopped trying. Since you checked out of this marriage and left my son to struggle alone." The accusation hit me like a slap. Because there was a grain of truth in it. I had been distant lately. I had been pulling away. But not because I'd stopped loving Mark. Because I'd been slowly losing my mind, questioning my own reality, wondering if I was the problem. Because of her. "I checked out," I said slowly, "because you made me feel like I was going crazy. You made me doubt everything about myself, my marriage, my sanity." "I never." "You did." Mark's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Mom, what did you do?" Linda looked between us, cornered and defiant. "I did what needed to be done. You two were heading for disaster anyway. I just expedited the process. By forging legal documents," I said. "By calling my family to spread lies about an affair that never happened. By taking a pregnancy test and planting it in our trash to make Mark think I was cheating." "You took a pregnancy test?" Mark stared at his mother in horror. Linda straightened in her chair, chin raised. "I was creating evidence of what I knew to be true. You were both having emotional affairs. Checking out. Looking elsewhere for what you couldn't find in each other. That's not." Mark started, then stopped. Because maybe there was truth there too. We had been drifting. We had been looking past each other instead of at each other. But not because we'd stopped loving each other. Because Linda had been systematically destroying our ability to trust. The phone calls, I said suddenly. You were calling my number and hanging up, weren't you? A tiny smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Hang-up calls make people paranoid. Paranoia creates distance. Creates distance. She'd studied this. Planned it. Executed it with the precision of a military campaign. Why? Mark's voice was barely a whisper. Why would you do this to us? Linda looked at her son with something that might have been love or possession. It was hard to tell the difference. Because you deserve better than settling, she said. Both of you. You're living parallel lives, not a shared one. I was trying to free you from a marriage that was slowly killing you both. Silence fell over the kitchen like a shroud. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked, and somewhere a lawnmower hummed to life. Normal sounds of a normal evening in a normal neighborhood where normal families weren't imploding over forged divorce papers. Get out, Mark said quietly. Linda blinked. What? Get out of our house. Tonight. Mark, honey, I was trying to help. You were trying to destroy my marriage. His voice was stronger now, certain. You were trying to destroy my wife's sanity. You were trying to play God with our lives. Where am I supposed to go? Linda's voice cracked, and for the first time, she sounded like what she was. A frightened old woman who'd overplayed her hand. I don't care, Mark said. Dave can take you in. Or find a hotel. But you're not staying here another night. I watched Linda pack her things in silence, her movements sharp and efficient. She folded her clothes with military precision, as if maintaining control over this small task could restore her dignity. When she reached the front door, she turned back to us. You'll see, she said quietly. In 6 months, a year, you'll realize I was right. You'll thank me for trying to save you from wasting more time on something that was already over. Maybe, I said. Or maybe we'll work on our marriage like adults instead of letting someone else decide our fate. She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Respect. Grudging, but there. Maybe you're stronger than I thought, she said. Maybe you should have given us the chance to find out. After she left, Mark and I sat in our suddenly quiet house, the silence stretching between us like a bridge we weren't sure how to cross. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? For not seeing it. For doubting you. For letting her. He gestured helplessly at the space where his mother's manipulations had lived and breathed and nearly destroyed us. I'm sorry too, I said. For pulling away. For not fighting harder for us when I felt us slipping. Were we slipping? Or were we just made to feel like we were? It was a good question. I thought about the past 6 months, trying to separate what was real from what Linda had manufactured. The truth was probably somewhere in the middle. We had been drifting, taking each other for granted, falling into the comfortable ruts that long marriages can become. But we hadn't been dying. We'd just been sleeping. I think, I said carefully, we were vulnerable. And she exploited that. Mark nodded. The marriage counselor I was seeing, she kept asking me about the signs I'd noticed. The changes in you. And I'd list them out like evidence in a case. What did she say? That sometimes when people are having affairs, they project their guilt onto their partners. Make their partners feel crazy to deflect attention from their own behavior. Make their partners feel crazy. Linda had been projecting all right. Not guilt over an affair, but guilt over something much worse. The systematic destruction of her son's marriage. The fake divorce papers, I said. Where are they now? Mark was quiet for a long moment. I threw them away. The day I found them, I was so angry I almost confronted you. But something felt wrong about them. The signature looked off. Off how? Too perfect. Like someone had practiced it. Of course Linda had practiced. She'd had months to perfect her forgery, months to plan every detail of our destruction. What happens now? I asked. Mark reached across the table and took my hand. His palm was warm, familiar, real. Now we decide if we want to rebuild what she tried to tear down. I looked at this man I'd married 12 years ago, this person I'd shared a life with, dreamed with, built a small world with. Under the stress and doubt of the past months, I could still see the Mark I'd fallen in love with. The one who left me coffee by the bedside every morning. Who knew I liked extra pickles on my burgers and always hummed off-key in the shower. Do you want to? I asked. Yeah, he said. I do. It wasn't that simple, of course. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. We went to real marriage counseling, not the solo sessions Mark had been attending. We learned to communicate about the small resentments that had built up over years of taking each other for granted. We talked about Linda's manipulation, but we also talked about our own responsibility for creating the cracks she'd exploited. Linda moved in with Dave and his wife across town. She sent a card on our anniversary, 3 months later. No note, just her signature in that careful handwriting I'd learned to recognize. We never found out if she'd actually filed the forged divorce papers, or if they were just meant to plant doubt. We decided we didn't want to know. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. But sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I think about those months when I thought I was losing my mind. How easily our reality had been manipulated by someone who claimed to love us. How thin the line is between trust and paranoia, between love and control. Ever wonder if someone in your family is playing a longer game than you realize? Mark and I are still together. Still working on it. Still learning that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day. Even when someone tries to take that choice away from you. The pregnancy test is long gone, but sometimes I still find myself checking the trash, just to be sure. Old habits die hard. Trust takes time to rebuild. But we're building it. One honest conversation at a time. Have you ever had someone try to destroy your relationship from the inside? Drop your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories about family, betrayal, and finding your way back to each other.